In the darkest moments of our lives, sometimes the most unexpected heroes emerge. When Melissa Turner lost everything in a devastating apartment fire, she never imagined that the quiet, reserved single father from down the hall would risk his life to save her twin daughters. But what began as a debt of gratitude has blossomed into something neither of them expected. This is the story of how tragedy, courage, and second chances can forge bonds stronger than the flames that threaten to destroy everything. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The piercing wail of smoke alarms shattered the peaceful April night in the Pinewood Heights apartment complex. It was just after midnight when Melissa Turner jolted awake, her bedroom already filling with thick, acrid smoke that burned her lungs with each desperate breath. The 32-year-old single mother's first thought wasn't for herself, but for her twin 6-year-old daughters, Emma and Olivia, sleeping in the bedroom across the hall. "Emma! Olivia!" Melissa screamed, her voice barely audible over the blaring alarms and the ominous crackling sound that seemed to be coming from everywhere at once. She stumbled out of bed, dropping to her hands and knees where the air was marginally clearer. The hallway outside her bedroom door glowed an unnatural orange, heat radiating in waves that made her skin prickle painfully. Through watering eyes, Melissa could see that the living room was already engulfed in flames, cutting off the path to her daughter's bedroom. In that moment, Melissa felt a primal terror, unlike anything she'd ever experienced. The fire had spread with unnatural speed, transforming her modest 2-bedroom apartment into a death trap in minutes. The main exit was completely blocked, and the window in her bedroom offered no escape from the 4th floor. But her daughters, her beautiful, innocent girls, were trapped on the other side of that inferno. Without hesitation, Melissa wrapped herself in the damp comforter from her bed and prepared to charge through the flames. She'd nearly reached the hallway when a section of the ceiling collapsed with a thunderous crash, sending a shower of burning debris between her and her children. The force of it knocked her backward, her head striking the corner of her dresser as she fell. The last thing Melissa remembered before losing consciousness was the sound of her daughter's terrified screams from behind the wall of flames. 4. Doors down the hall, 36-year-old Ryan Mitchell was also startled awake by the alarms. A construction foreman and single father to 10-year-old Lucas, Ryan had moved to Pinewood Heights 6 months earlier after his divorce. He'd barely spoken to his neighbors in that time, preferring to keep to himself as he adjusted to his new reality. Ryan's apartment was still clear of smoke when he woke, but the acrid smell and the urgency of the alarms told him this was no drill. He shook Lucas awake, grabbed their emergency backpack and headed for the door. That's when he heard the screams, high-pitched, terrified wails that could only belong to young children. "Dad, what's that noise?" Lucas asked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Stay here," Ryan ordered, placing his son near the stairwell where other residents were already fleeing. "I need to check something. If I'm not back in 2 minutes, go downstairs with everyone else." Before Lucas could protest, Ryan was sprinting down the hall toward the screams, pulling his t-shirt up over his nose and mouth as the smoke grew thicker. He passed 2 apartments before reaching the source of the commotion, Unit 415, where flames were already visible through the crack beneath. The door, the rational part of Ryan's brain, told him to turn back. The fire department would arrive soon. They had the equipment, the training. But those screams, they reminded him too much of Lucas. And somewhere deep inside, Ryan knew that whoever was trapped inside didn't have time to wait for professionals. He tried the door handle first, hot but not scalding, locked. With a silent prayer, Ryan took 3 steps back and slammed his shoulder into the door. The wood splintered around the lock, giving way on his second attempt. A wall of heat and smoke rushed out, nearly knocking Ryan off his feet. Through streaming eyes, he could make out the orange glow of flames consuming what appeared to be a living room. The screams were louder now, coming from somewhere deeper in the apartment. "Hello?" Ryan called out, dropping to his knees to stay, below the worst of the smoke. "Where are you? Help! Please help us!" The voices came from behind a door to the right of the living room. Ryan crawled forward, his lungs burning with each breath. The floor was hot beneath his palms, and debris rained down from the ceiling in fiery chunks. He reached the door and pushed it open to find two small girls huddled together in a corner, their pajamas smudged with soot and tears carving clean trails down their blackened faces. "My mommy!" one of them cried. "She was calling for us, but then she stopped." "I'm going to get you out of here," Ryan promised, his voice rough from the smoke. "Then I'll come back for your mum, but you need to be brave and do exactly as I say." The girls nodded solemnly, their eyes wide with fear, but trusting. Ryan stripped the comforter from their bed and wrapped it around them both, creating a makeshift shield against the flames. "Hold on to each other and stay under this," he instructed. "I'm going to carry you both. Keep your faces covered and your eyes closed." Ryan scooped up the twins, one in each arm, their small bodies wrapped in the protective cocoon of the comforter. The heat in the apartment had intensified, and the path back to the door was now a gauntlet of flames and falling debris. With a deep breath of what little clean air remained, Ryan charged through the inferno toward the exit. The journey seemed to take an eternity. Twice, Ryan had to change course as burning ceiling tiles crashed down in front of him. The girls clung to him silently, trembling but following his instructions perfectly. When they finally reached the hallway, Ryan nearly collapsed with relief at the sight of firefighters advancing with hoses and oxygen tanks. "There's still someone inside," Ryan gasped, transferring the girls to a waiting paramedic. "Their mother, I need to go back." "Sir, you can't go back in there," a firefighter said firmly, gripping Ryan's arm as he attempted to turn back. "The structure is becoming unstable. We'll find her." Ryan wanted to argue, but his lungs seized in a violent coughing fit. The world tilted sideways, and the last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the terrified faces of the twin girls being carried toward the stairs, looking back at him over the paramedic's shoulder. When Melissa Turner regained consciousness, the antiseptic smell and rhythmic beeping of medical equipment told her she was in a hospital before she even opened her eyes. Her throat felt as though she'd swallowed glass, and a dull throb pulsed behind her temples with each heartbeat. But the moment awareness returned, one thought consumed her. "My daughters," she croaked, her voice barely audible. "Emma and Olivia. Where are my daughters?" A nurse appeared at her bedside, placing a gentle hand on Melissa's arm. "They're safe, Ms. Turner. They're being checked out in pediatrics, but they're doing remarkably well. No serious injuries." Relief washed over Melissa in a wave so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. "How?" she managed to ask. "The fire, they were trapped. A neighbor got them out," the nurse explained. "A Mr. Mitchell from your building. He's a few rooms down, being treated for smoke inhalation." The name meant nothing to Melissa. In the 18 months she'd lived at Pinewood Heights, she'd barely had time to get to know her neighbors between working double shifts at the hospital. As a nurse and caring for the twins, "I need to see them," Melissa insisted, trying to push herself up despite the oxygen mask covering her face and the IV line in her arm. "You will," the nurse promised, "but you've suffered a concussion and moderate smoke inhalation. You need to rest first." It was another 3 hours before Melissa was finally reunited with Emma and Olivia. When they burst into her room, their faces lighting up at the sight of her, Melissa broke down in tears. They looked so normal, so alive, when her last memory had been of their terrified screams beyond a wall of flames she couldn't penetrate. "Mommy!" they cried in unison, clambering onto her bed with the boundless energy of children too young to fully comprehend how close they'd come to death. "My babies," Melissa sobbed, gathering them close despite the pain in her ribs. I was so scared. Are you really okay? The nice man saved us, Emma said matter-of-factly. He carried us like we were princesses. He was super strong, Olivia added, and he promised he'd save you too, but then he got sick. Melissa looked up at the social worker, who had accompanied her daughters. Mr. Mitchell? She asked. Is he all right? He's recovering, the woman assured her. Smoke inhalation, second-degree burns on his hands and forearms, and a sprained ankle from when he collapsed in the hallway. But the doctors expect him to make a full recovery. I need to thank him, Melissa said, her voice breaking. He saved my world. 2 days later, with Emma and Olivia staying temporarily with Melissa's sister, Melissa made her way down the hospital corridor to room 327. Her own. Discharge was scheduled for later that afternoon, but she couldn't leave without meeting the man who had risked his life to save her daughters. She paused in the doorway, suddenly uncertain. Inside, a man with sandy brown hair sat propped up against pillows, his bandaged hands resting on the blanket covering his lap. A boy of about 10 was curled up in a chair beside the bed, absorbed in a handheld video game. Neither noticed her at first. Mr. Mitchell? Melissa said softly. The man looked up, his hazel eyes meeting hers. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by relief. You're alive, he said simply. They wouldn't tell me much because we're not family. I've been worried. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Melissa moved into the room, emotion tightening her throat. I'm Melissa Turner, and you saved my daughters. Dad's a hero, the boy announced proudly, looking up from his game. That's what the firefighters said. Ryan's face flushed with embarrassment. I just did what anyone would do. This is my son, Lucas, by the way. It's not what anyone would do, Melissa countered, moving closer to the bed. You risked your life for children you didn't even know. My girls are everything to me, Mr. Mitchell. I don't have words to thank you enough. Ryan, he corrected gently. And really, I wasn't thinking clearly. I heard their screams and just reacted. Melissa sank into the chair opposite Lucas, suddenly, overwhelmed by the enormity of what this stranger had done. The doctors told me what happened after you got the girls out, how you tried to go back in for me. Ryan looked down at his bandaged hands. I promised them I would. I'm sorry I couldn't. Don't, Melissa interrupted. Don't apologize. You did more than anyone could have expected. The firefighters found me. I'm okay. We're all okay, thanks. To you. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the electronic sounds from Lucas's game and the distant bustle of the hospital corridor. Melissa studied the man before her, not handsome in the conventional sense, but with a quiet strength in his features. There were smile lines around his eyes, though he didn't seem like someone who smiled easily. I hear we're neighbors, she said finally, though I suppose that's not true anymore. Ryan grimaced. Yeah, I heard from the fire marshal this morning. The damage was extensive. They're condemning the entire East Wing. The reality of their situation hit Melissa anew. Everything she owned, every photograph, memento, piece of furniture, toy, and item of clothing was gone. The insurance would help eventually, but the immediate future loomed like a vast, uncertain void. Where will you go? Ryan asked, as if reading her thoughts. My sister's for now, Melissa replied. She has a 2-bedroom house across town. It'll be tight with the twins, but we'll manage until I can find a new place. What about you and Lucas? We're heading to my brother's place in Springfield, Ryan said. It's about an hour away, but he has the space. I can commute to work for a while. Another silence fell, heavier this time. There was a sense of an ending before anything had truly begun, lives that had intersected in the most dramatic way possible, now diverging again. The girls want to see you, Melissa said suddenly. "They've been asking. They call you the nice man and the super-strong princess carrier." That drew a genuine smile from Ryan, transforming his face. "I'd like that. They were incredibly brave that night." "Like their rescuer," Melissa returned the smile. "When do they discharge you?" "Tomorrow, if all goes well," Ryan replied. "My breathing is better, and they want to change the dressings on my hands one more time." "We're headed to my sister's this afternoon, but maybe we could visit before you leave," Melissa suggested. "And I'd like to stay in touch, if that's okay. The girls will want to know how you're doing, and—" She trailed off, unsure how to express the connection she felt to this man, this stranger who was now forever linked to the most traumatic and miraculous night of her life. "I'd like that too," Ryan said quietly, his eyes holding hers. Neither noticed Lucas looking between them with a thoughtful expression, his game momentarily forgotten. When Melissa returned to her sister's house that evening, the twins bombarded her with questions about the hero man and when they could see him. Their excitement was a welcome distraction from the heavy reality of their situation, the loss of their home and possessions, the impending insurance battles, the search for a new apartment on Melissa's stretched budget. Later, after the girls were asleep in the guest bedroom they now shared, Melissa sat at her sister Amber's kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold between her hands. "You're a million miles away," Amber observed, sliding into the chair opposite, "thinking about the fire." "Thinking about everything," Melissa admitted. "How quickly it all happened. How close I came to losing them. And this man, Ryan, he didn't hesitate. He just walked into the flames for two little girls he'd never met." "Some people are simply wired that way," Amber said. "But I get the feeling there's something else on your mind about this guy." Melissa traced the rim of her mug with a finger. "It's strange. When I was talking to him today, I felt this connection. Not just gratitude, though God knows I'll be grateful to him for the rest of my life. It was something more. The handsome hero who saved your children," Amber teased. "It's like something out of a movie." "It's not that," Melissa protested, though she couldn't deny that there had been something compelling about Ryan's quiet strength. "It's more like we've both been through so much. He's a single parent too, you know, and now we're both displaced, starting over. There's a strange symmetry to it." "So, what are you going to do about it?" Amber asked. Melissa sighed, looking out the window at the unfamiliar neighborhood that would be their temporary home. "I don't know. The girls and I are going to see him tomorrow before he's discharged. After that, he's moving an hour away to stay with his brother." "An hour isn't that far," Amber pointed out. "It might as well be 1,000 miles right now." Melissa said, "I have to focus on finding us a new home, replacing everything we lost, keeping the girls' routine as normal as possible. There's no room for whatever this is." But even as she said the words, Melissa couldn't shake the memory of Ryan's eyes meeting hers, the unspoken understanding that had passed between them. They had shared something profound, something life-altering. And deep down, Melissa knew that simple gratitude wasn't going to be enough. Not for her, and maybe not for him either. The next morning, when Melissa arrived at the hospital with Emma and Olivia dressed in new outfits Amber had purchased for them, she felt an unexpected flutter of nerves. The twins, however, had no such hesitation. They bounded down the corridor ahead of her, excited to see the man who had carried them through the fire. "Remember, he might look a little different with the bandages," Melissa cautioned as they approached room 327. "And his hands are hurt, so no high fives or handshakes." The girls nodded solemnly, their matching blonde ponytails bobbing. Then Emma tugged at Melissa's hand, her expression suddenly serious. "Mommy," she whispered, "is the nice man going to be our new daddy?" The question caught Melissa completely off guard. "What?" "No, sweetie. He's just the kind person who helped us during the fire." "Why would you think that?" Emma shrugged. In movies, when someone saves the princess, they always get married and live happily ever after. Despite the stress of the past few days, Melissa couldn't help but laugh. Life isn't quite like the movies, honey. Now come on, let's not keep Mr. Mitchell waiting. But as they entered the room, to find Ryan sitting on the edge of the bed, dressed in clothes that were slightly too large for him, borrowed from his brother, he would later explain. With Lucas helping him tie his shoes because of his bandaged hands, Melissa felt that flutter again. And when Ryan looked up and his face broke into a genuine smile at the sight of the twins, she realized that maybe, just maybe, real life could occasionally take a page from the movies after all. The hospital room felt smaller with all five of them inside it. Emma and Olivia approached Ryan's bed with uncharacteristic shyness, clutching each other's hands, as they always did when nervous. "Hi," Emma said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hello again," Ryan replied gently. "I'm really glad to see you both looking so well." "Does your hands hurt bad?" Olivia asked, eyeing the white bandages wrapped around Ryan's palms and forearms. "Not too bad," Ryan assured her with a smile. "The doctors gave me special medicine for that." Lucas, who had been standing awkwardly beside his father's bed, suddenly stepped forward. "I'm Lucas," he announced to the twins. "My dad carried you guys out of the fire. He's pretty tough." The introduction broke the ice. Within minutes, the three children were chatting animatedly, with Lucas proudly recounting what the firefighters had told him about his father's actions, and the twins sharing their perspective of being wrapped in their comforter and carried through the flames. Melissa watched the interaction with a mix of emotions. Relief that her daughters seemed untraumatized by their ordeal. Gratitude for this man who had risked everything for them. And something else, something unexpected, as she observed Ryan with the children. He was patient and attentive, answering their questions seriously rather than brushing them off. Despite his obvious discomfort, he focused entirely on making the twins feel at ease. "You're good with them," Melissa observed when the nurse arrived with Ryan's discharge papers, and Lucas took it upon himself to show the twins the vending machine down the hall. Ryan shrugged, wincing slightly at the movement. "Lucas has given me plenty of practice, and your girls make it easy. They're great kids." "They want to be firefighters now," Melissa said with a small laugh. "Both of them. This morning they were arguing over who would drive the truck and who would hold the hose." "Sorry about that," Ryan replied with a chuckle. "Though I suppose there are worse career aspirations." A comfortable silence fell between them as Ryan awkwardly tried to sign his discharge papers with his bandaged right hand. "Let me," Melissa offered, taking the clipboard. "Nurses training. I'm used to helping patients with paperwork." As she filled out the forms, Melissa felt Ryan's eyes on her. Not in an uncomfortable way, but with a quiet intensity that made her acutely aware of his presence. "Your brother's coming to pick you up?" she asked, glancing at the transportation information on the form. "Yeah, David should be here soon," Ryan confirmed. "He's bringing some clothes for Lucas and me since we lost everything in the fire." The shared loss hung in the air between them, a common ground neither had sought. "It feels strange," Melissa admitted quietly, "knowing that everything I owned is gone. The twins' baby pictures, my mother's jewelry, the quilt my grandmother made. All of it just gone." Ryan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "The physical stuff hurts more than I expected. Lucas had this teddy bear since he was a baby. He pretended he was too old for it, but he still kept it on his bed. Now it's gone, and I can't replace it." "Not really." "The fire marshal said it started in the unit below mine," Melissa said. "Faulty. A wiring. Something so small, and now dozens of lives turned upside down." "We'll rebuild," Ryan said simply. "Different maybe, but we'll figure it out." Before Melissa could respond, the children returned, Lucas proudly leading the twins, who each clutched a candy bar in their small hands. "Lucas bought us chocolate," Emma announced. "With my allowance," Lucas added quickly, glancing at his father. You said I could spend it how I wanted, remember? That was very thoughtful of you, Ryan said, the pride evident in his voice. A tall man appeared in the doorway then, his resemblance to Ryan unmistakable, despite being several inches taller and a bit broader. There's my hero brother, he called out with forced cheerfulness. Ready to break out of this joint? Uncle David, Lucas exclaimed, running to hug the newcomer. Miss Turner, this is my brother David, Ryan introduced them. David, this is Melissa Turner and her daughters, Emma and Olivia. Understanding dawned on David's face. The neighbors. I've heard all about you from the local news. You've got yourself a genuine hero here, ma'am. Melissa smiled, extending her hand. Believe me, I know, and please call me Melissa. As the men prepared to leave, Melissa felt a sudden panic at the thought of Ryan walking out of their lives. It was irrational. They barely knew each other. Yet the connection forged in fire and aftermath felt too significant to sever so abruptly. I know you're staying with your brother for a while, she began hesitantly, but I'd like to keep in touch. Maybe the kids could have a play date once we're all settled. The twins are already asking when they can see Lucas again. I'd like that, Ryan replied, meeting her gaze. I'll call you? Melissa nodded, scribbling her cell number on the back of a hospital pamphlet. Their fingers brushed as she handed it to him, and for a moment neither pulled away. Thank you again, she said softly. For everything. Any time, Ryan replied, his expression serious. Though let's hope there's never a next time. As they parted ways in the hospital parking lot, Ryan and Lucas heading to David's SUV, while Melissa led the twins to her sister's waiting car, Melissa couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Tentative and undefined, though it might be. The weeks that followed were a blur of insurance claims, shopping for necessities, and hunting for a new apartment. Melissa's sister Amber was supportive but firm in her insistence that they find their own place as soon as possible. 3 kids and 2 adults in this house are pushing it, she pointed out one evening after the twins were asleep. Besides, you need your independence back. Melissa knew she was right. The insurance money had come through more quickly than expected, providing enough for a deposit and first month's rent on a new place. The challenge was finding something affordable within the girls' school district. There's just nothing available, Melissa lamented, scrolling through rental listings on her laptop. Everything's either too expensive or too far from the hospital. What about that place in Oak Ridge Commons? Amber suggested, peering over her shoulder. It's only a few miles from here. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, Melissa read aloud. In our price range, allows children. Actually, this could work. Great. Call them tomorrow, Amber said, then hesitated. Have you heard from him? Melissa didn't need to ask who him was. Ryan had been a frequent topic of conversation over the past weeks. They'd texted a few times, checking in on each other's recovery, sharing frustrations about insurance processes, exchanging photos of the children. But between her nursing shifts and apartment hunting and his return to work while commuting from his brother's house, they hadn't found time to meet in person again. He texted yesterday, Melissa admitted. He found a rental house near his job site. It's a fixer-upper, but the owner is giving him a break on rent in exchange for some renovation work. And, Amber prompted, knowing there was more. And he asked if we'd like to come see it this weekend, Melissa continued. He said Lucas has been asking about the girls. Just Lucas, huh? Amber teased. I'm sure Ryan hasn't been thinking about his beautiful neighbor whose children he heroically rescued from a burning building. Stop, Melissa protested, feeling her cheeks warm. It's not like that. We've both been through a traumatic experience. There's a natural bond there. A natural bond, Amber repeated with a knowing smile. Is that what the kids are calling it these days? Melissa threw a couch pillow at her sister, but the question lingered. What exactly was developing between her and Ryan? Gratitude had morphed into friendship, certainly, but the flutter in her stomach when his name appeared on her phone suggested the potential for something more. Saturday dawned clear and warm, perfect weather for the hour-long drive to Castlewood, the small town where Ryan had found his rental. The twins were excited for the adventure, as they dubbed it, and chattered non-stop from the back seat of Amber's borrowed car. "Is Lucas's house big?" Emma wanted to know. "Does he have a dog?" Olivia asked. "I want a dog, but Aunt Amber's allergic." "I don't know, sweetie," Melissa answered. "We'll find out when we get there." As they turned onto Maple Street, a quiet lane lined with modest older homes, Melissa felt a flutter of nerves. She'd changed outfits 3 times that morning, settling, finally on jeans and a simple blue top that Amber insisted brought out her eyes, and had spent extra time on her hair. Ridiculous, she told herself. This wasn't a date. It was a play date for the children. Nothing more. Ryan's rental was easy to spot. A small white cottage with black shutters and a wraparound porch that had seen better days. A section of the porch railing was missing, and paint peeled from the window frames, but the yard was neat and cheerful yellow tulips bloomed along the front walkway. Before Melissa could even unbuckle the twins from their car seats, the front door flew open and Lucas emerged, followed by Ryan, who moved with only the slightest hint of lingering stiffness from his injuries. "They're here," Lucas announced, bounding down the steps. "Dad, they're here." The greeting was warm, but somewhat awkward, with the twins suddenly shy despite their earlier excitement, and Ryan and Melissa exchanging a quick hug that seemed to surprise them both. "Welcome to the Mitchell fixer-upper," Ryan said with a self-conscious laugh. "It's not much yet, but we're working on it." "It's charming," Melissa replied honestly. "I love older homes like this. They have character." "That's one word for it," Ryan grinned. "Lucas, why don't you show the girls the backyard while I give Ms. Turner the grand tour?" "Melissa," she corrected gently, "after everything we've been through, I think we're well past formalities." The interior of the house was sparsely furnished but clean, with moving boxes still stacked in corners. A nearly empty bookshelf stood against one wall, a framed photograph of Lucas as a toddler, its sole occupant. "We're starting over with pretty much everything," Ryan explained, following her gaze. "Lucas's school photo was in my wallet, so that survived. Everything else—" "I know," Melissa said softly. "We're in the same boat. It's strange shopping for all new things, trying to decide what's worth replacing." They moved through the small living room into a kitchen with outdated appliances, but good natural light. Through the window, they could see the children exploring the backyard, Lucas showing the twins something in a tree. A birdhouse, Melissa realized. "He built that yesterday," Ryan said proudly. "His first carpentry project. He's determined to help with all the repairs." "Like father, like son," Melissa observed. "The girls told me you're a construction foreman." Ryan nodded. 15 years. In the business. Started as a laborer right out of high school. Worked my way up. It's not glamorous, but I enjoy creating things, seeing a project come together. "It's honest work," Melissa said, "and clearly you're good at it. Lucas adores you. Anyone can see that." A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the children through the window. Lucas was helping the twins take turns climbing up to peek into the birdhouse, his hands steady on their shoulders as they balanced on a tree stump. "He's never taken to anyone the way he has to your girls," Ryan said softly. "The divorce was hard on him. He's been so withdrawn this past year. But since the fire, since meeting Emma and Olivia, he's different, more like his old self." The twins couldn't stop talking about him on the drive over, Melissa admitted. "They've never had many friends. We moved around a lot when they were younger, and they've always had each other, but they really like Lucas." Ryan turned to face her, his expression suddenly serious. "Melissa, there's something I need to say. I've been thinking about it since the hospital, and He was interrupted by a commotion from the backyard, Lucas's excited shout and the twins' squeals of delight. Looking out, they saw that a small brown dog had appeared from under the back porch and was cautiously approaching the children. "That's Rufus," Ryan explained with a laugh. "He came with the house, more or less. The previous owners abandoned him, and he's been hanging around. I've been feeding him, and yesterday I finally coaxed him onto the porch. Lucas is over the moon. He's always wanted a dog." Melissa smiled, the tension of the moment broken. "The twins will be jealous. They've been begging for a pet." They headed outside to join the children, who were now sitting in a circle, the small mutt cautiously accepting pets from each of them in turn. "Mom," Olivia called out, "Lucas has a dog. He says his name is Rufus, and he's scared of loud noises, but likes bacon." "I see that," Melissa replied, settling on the back step beside Ryan. "He's very cute." The afternoon passed pleasantly, with a simple lunch of sandwiches eaten picnic-style in the backyard. Lucas led the twins on an expedition to explore every corner of the property, while Ryan and Melissa talked about their children, their jobs, their hopes for rebuilding their lives after the fire. It was easy, comfortable in a way that surprised them both. As the day waned and the shadows lengthened, Melissa reluctantly checked her watch. "We should probably head back soon. The girls have school tomorrow and it's an hour drive." "Of course," Ryan said, though disappointment flickered across his face. "Thanks for coming all this way. It meant a lot to Lucas." "And to the girls," Melissa added. "We should do this again soon." As they walked to the car, the twins dragging their feet in reluctance to leave their new friend, Ryan cleared his throat nervously. "About what I was trying to say earlier," he began. "I know this might sound strange, given how we met and everything that's happened, but I feel like there's something here, between us, that's worth exploring." Melissa's heart quickened. "I felt it too," she admitted quietly. "I wasn't sure if it was just the shared trauma or it's more than that," Ryan interrupted gently. "At least for me, I'd like to see where it could go. Maybe dinner sometime, just the two of us." Melissa smiled, warmth spreading through her at the sincerity in his eyes. "I'd like that very much." As they exchanged a lingering goodbye, with promises to arrange dinner soon, neither noticed Lucas and the twins exchanging triumphant grins, or heard Emma whisper to her sister, "See? Just like in the movies." The next few weeks brought a whirlwind of changes. Melissa found a 2-bedroom apartment in Oak Ridge Commons, only 20 minutes from Ryan's rental house in Castlewood. The twins started at their new school, quickly, adjusting to the change with resilience that amazed their mother. And Ryan and Melissa began dating, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as their connection deepened. Their first official date was dinner at a small Italian restaurant halfway between their new homes. Conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and moments of shared understanding that felt rare and precious. By the time Ryan walked Melissa to her car, both knew they were standing on the threshold of something significant. "I had a wonderful time," Melissa said, suddenly shy despite the ease between them all evening. "So did I," Ryan replied, his voice low. "I'd really like to kiss you goodnight if that's okay." Melissa's answer was to step closer, tilting her face up to his. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with a rush of emotion that left them both breathless. "Worth waiting for," Ryan murmured when they finally pulled apart. Melissa laughed softly. "Who'd have thought when you broke down my door that night that we'd end up here?" "I'm just glad I did break it down," Ryan said seriously. "Not just because of the girls, though that would have been enough, but because it led me to you." The weeks turned into months. Summer arrived, bringing warm evenings perfect for backyard barbecues and weekends spent working on Ryan's cottage. The children thrived in each other's company, with Lucas taking his role as the big brother seriously, teaching the twins to ride bikes without training wheels and helping them build a treehouse in the old oak behind Ryan's house. Melissa and Ryan's relationship deepened with each passing day. They shared their fears and hopes, their mistakes and triumphs. Ryan spoke of his failed marriage, the ex-wife who had left him and Lucas for a new life in California. Melissa confided the story of the twins' father, a college boyfriend who had panicked at the news of her pregnancy and disappeared from her life before the girls were born. There were challenges, of course. Balancing work schedules, coordinating, childcare, navigating the complexities of blending their lives. But through it all, the connection forged in fire only strengthened. On a warm August evening, 4 months after the fire that had destroyed their homes but brought them together, Ryan invited Melissa to a special dinner on his now repaired front porch. The twins and Lucas were having a sleepover at Aunt Amber's, giving the adults a rare night alone. Ryan had transformed the porch with string lights and candles, a small table set for two in the corner with a view of the sunset. Melissa arrived, to find him nervous but determined, his hair still damp from a shower, wearing a button-down shirt she hadn't seen before. "What's all this?" she asked, touched by the effort he'd made. "A celebration," Ryan replied, pulling out her chair. 4 months ago today, I heard screams from apartment 415 and made the best impulsive decision of my life. Dinner was Ryan's attempt at gourmet cooking. Not entirely successful, but made with such clear effort that Melissa found it endearing rather than disappointing. They talked and laughed, remembering their first meetings in the hospital and marveling at how far they'd come. After dessert, store-bought cheesecake that Ryan admitted he hadn't attempted to make himself, he reached across the table to take her hand. "Do you believe in fate, Melissa?" he asked suddenly. She considered the question. "I never used to. But after everything that's happened, how can I not? So many things had to align for us to be here right now." Ryan nodded, his expression serious. "I've been thinking about that a lot lately, how something as terrible as that fire could lead to something so wonderful, how loss could turn into such gain." He stood then, moving around the table to kneel. Beside her chair, still holding her hand, Melissa's breath caught as she realized what was happening. "I know it hasn't been long," Ryan said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "But when you know, you know. And I know that I love you, Melissa Turner. I love your strength, your kindness, your dedication to your daughters. I love the family we're building together, you and me and the twins and Lucas. I can't imagine my life without you in it now." From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. "This isn't fancy," he warned as he opened it to reveal a simple solitaire diamond set in white gold. "But it's a promise that I will always be there for you and the girls, the way I was that night, but every day from now on. Will you marry me, Melissa?" Tears blurred Melissa's vision as she looked from the ring to Ryan's hopeful face. In that moment, she saw their entire journey, from strangers connected by tragedy to partners bound by love. And she saw their future, the life they could build together, the family they were already becoming. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, Ryan, I'll marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to pull her into his arms, Melissa thought of Emma's innocent question at the hospital months ago. "Is the nice man going to be our new daddy?" Sometimes it seemed life really did take a page from the movies after all. News of Ryan and Melissa's engagement spread quickly. The twins were ecstatic, jumping up and down with excitement when told they would officially become a family. Lucas's reaction was more reserved, a quiet smile and a long hug for his father, followed by a whisper, "I knew it." Amber welcomed Ryan into the family with open arms. "About time," she teased when Melissa called with the news. "I was starting to think I'd have to lock you two in a room together." But not everyone was as supportive. Ryan's brother David expressed concerns when Ryan told him over lunch the following week, "4 months, Ryan? Don't you think that's rushing things a bit?" David pushed his plate away, his expression troubled. "I'm not saying she's not great. She seems wonderful. But after everything with Christine, Ryan stiffened at the mention of his ex-wife. This is nothing like that. Melissa is nothing like Christine. You said the same thing about Christine when you met her, David pointed out gently. Look, I'm just saying maybe give it some time. Live together first. See how the kids adjust to being a blended family. There's no need to rush into marriage. I'm not rushing, Ryan insisted. When you know, and I know Melissa is the one. David sighed, recognizing the determined set of his brother's jaw. All right, you know I'll support you no matter what. I just don't want to see you hurt again. Ryan softened. I appreciate that, but this is different. Melissa and we've been through something extraordinary together. It changes things, creates a bond that's hard to explain. Just promise me. One thing, David said, a longer engagement. Give yourselves time to really be sure. Ryan nodded slowly. We were thinking of spring. That's 8 months away. Good, David said, visibly relieved. That's good. Melissa faced similar concerns from her parents when they visited from Florida the following weekend. Eleanor and James Turner had moved south after retirement 3 years earlier, but maintained close contact with their daughter and granddaughters through weekly video calls and seasonal visits. He seems like a wonderful man, Eleanor said, as she helped Melissa prepare dinner. The twins and their grandfather were in the backyard of the apartment complex, the girls eager to show off their new playground. Very heroic, of course. But, marriage, Melissa? So soon? Mom, I'm 32, not 16, Melissa replied, her tone light but firm. I know my own mind. Of course you do, sweetheart, Eleanor soothed. But after what happened with Mark... This is nothing like that situation, Melissa interrupted. Mark was a boy who couldn't handle responsibility. Ryan is a man who walks into burning buildings to save children he's never met. There's a difference, Eleanor smiled sadly. I just want you to be sure the girls are at an impressionable age. If this doesn't work out... It will, Melissa said with quiet confidence. I've never been more certain of anything. Later that evening, after introducing Ryan to her parents over dinner, Melissa felt vindicated by her father's whispered approval as they said goodbye. He's solid, James told her with a nod. Looks at you the right way, listens to the girls. Your mother will come around. Despite these minor reservations from family members, plans for their spring wedding progressed steadily through the fall. Months. They decided on a small ceremony at Ryan's now renovated cottage, with its blooming garden and the treehouse that had become the children's favorite spot. As Christmas approached, they faced their first major decision as an engaged couple. Where to spend the holiday? We could split the day, Ryan suggested one evening, as they sat on his porch swing, wrapped in a blanket against the December chill. Morning at your place, dinner at mine? Melissa shook her head. That seems so disjointed. The kids deserve a whole day together, not rushed halves. Ryan hesitated, then suggested, what if we just moved in together now? Why wait until after the wedding? The lease on your apartment is month to month, and there's plenty of room here for all of you. Really? Melissa asked, surprised by the suggestion. You think we're ready for that? I think we've wasted enough time living separately, Ryan replied, turning to face her. The kids already act like siblings. You spend most weekends here anyway. Why not make it official? Melissa considered the proposal. The practical benefits were obvious. 1 rent payment instead of 2, no more driving back and forth, the chance to truly function as a family unit before the wedding. But beyond that, she realized how much she wanted it, to fall asleep beside Ryan every night, to create morning routines together, to transform his house into their home. Let's do it, she decided. After Christmas, we'll use the holiday break to move, get the girls settled before school starts again. Ryan's face lit up. Really? You're sure? Completely, Melissa assured him, leaning in for a kiss that sealed their decision. Christmas that year was a blend of old traditions and new beginnings. They celebrated at Ryan's, soon-to-be their house, with both sets of grandparents invited for Christmas dinner. The children helped decorate the tree, hanging a mix of ornaments hastily purchased to replace those lost in the fire, alongside special new ones they had chosen together at a local craft fair. On Christmas morning, after the flurry of gift opening had subsided, Ryan called for everyone's attention. "I have one more present," he announced, retrieving a large envelope from behind the tree. "This is for all three of you," he said, addressing the twins and Melissa. Inside the envelope was a stack of official-looking papers. Melissa scanned them, her confusion turning to shock as she realized what they were. "Adoption papers," she whispered, looking up at Ryan with tears in her eyes. Ryan nodded, kneeling down to be at eye level with Emma and Olivia. "After we get married," he explained. "Gently, if you want me to, I would be honored to legally become your dad, but only if that's something you'd like." The twins exchanged one of their silent communications, a twins' language of glances that had fascinated Ryan from the beginning. "Does that mean we'd be Mitchells too?" Emma asked seriously. "If you want to be," Ryan confirmed. "Or you could keep your last name, or have both. It's completely up to you." "Would Lucas be our real brother?" Olivia wanted to know. "He already is in every way that matters," Ryan said. "But yes, legally he would be your brother." Another silent exchange between the girls, then both broke into identical grins. "Yes, please," they said in unison, launching themselves into Ryan's arms with such force that he toppled backward, laughing. Across the room, Lucas watched with a small smile. Melissa moved to sit beside him on the couch. "How do you feel about all this?" she asked softly. Lucas considered the question with the thoughtfulness that seemed beyond his 10 years. "I always wanted siblings," he said finally, "and Dad's happier than I've ever seen him. So I think it's pretty great." The week between Christmas and New Year's was a whirlwind of packing, moving, and rearranging. Ryan's 3-bedroom cottage was cozy for a family of 5, but with some creative furniture placement and storage solutions, they made it work. The twins shared the larger of the 2 spare bedrooms, their twin beds flanking a window that overlooked the backyard. Lucas kept his room, though he readily sacrificed some space for a shared play area filled with both his gaming console and the twins' collection of dolls and crafting supplies. "It's weird," Melissa commented one night as she and Ryan lay in bed, listening to the unfamiliar creaks of the old house settling. "I thought the adjustment would be harder, but it already feels like home." "That's because it is," Ryan murmured, pulling her closer. "It's not about the house, it's about the people in it." January brought new routines and minor challenges. Morning schedules had to be coordinated, with 3 children needing to be at 2 different schools, and 2 adults heading to jobs in opposite directions. The single bathroom led to occasional conflicts, quickly resolved by implementing a sign-up system for shower times. The laundry doubled, the grocery bill tripled, and the noise level increased exponentially. And yet, amid the chaos, they found a rhythm that worked. Ryan taught the twins to make their famous Saturday morning pancakes, a tradition he and Lucas had maintained since the divorce. Melissa introduced regular family game nights, complete with homemade pizzas and ice cream sundaes. Together, they navigated the complexities of bedtimes, homework supervision, and the fair distribution of chores. There were disagreements, of course. Ryan's more relaxed parenting style occasionally clashed with Melissa's structured approach. The twins tested boundaries as children will in new situations. Lucas experienced moments of jealousy when his father's attention was divided 3 ways instead of focused solely on him. But through it all, the foundation they had built proved sturdy. They talked through conflicts, adjusted expectations, and reminded each other of the miracle that had brought them together in the first place. As winter melted into spring, wedding plans accelerated. Melissa found a simple white dress at a boutique in town, and the twins were ecstatic about their matching junior bridesmaid dresses in pale blue. Lucas would serve as his father's best man, a responsibility he took with utmost seriousness, right down to the selection of matching ties. 2 weeks before the wedding, as they finalized the guest list, Ryan received an unexpected email. "It's from Christine," he said, his voice carefully neutral as he looked up from his phone. "Lucas's mother." Melissa's stomach tightened. In the months they'd been together, Christine had been a ghost on the periphery of their lives. Present, in Lucas's occasional mentions and in the court-mandated phone calls twice a month, but otherwise absent. "What does she want?" Melissa asked, trying to keep her tone casual. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Melissa had come to recognize as a sign of stress. "She heard about the wedding. She's coming to town that weekend and wants to see Lucas." "How did she find out?" "David, probably," Ryan sighed. "They're still connected on social media. He might have mentioned it without thinking." The timing seemed suspicious to Melissa, but she kept that thought to herself. "What are you going to tell her?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "She has visitation rights, but she's barely used them. One weekend last summer, a few days at Christmas. Lucas was disappointed both times when she cut the visits short." "What does Lucas want?" Ryan's expression softened at the mention of his son. "That's the thing. For all her flaws as a wife, and despite her inconsistency, he still lights up when she calls. She's his mother." "Then I think you have your answer," Melissa said gently, though her heart ached for the boy who had become as dear to her as her own children. "Let him see her. Just make sure she understands the importance of following through this time." Ryan nodded slowly. "You're right. And I should tell her about the adoption plans for the twins. She should hear that from me, not through the grapevine." The day before the wedding, Christine arrived in Castlewood. To everyone's surprise, she requested a meeting with both Ryan and Melissa before seeing Lucas. They met at a cafe in town, neutral territory for what promised to be an awkward conversation. Christine was as Ryan had described her, strikingly beautiful with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and the kind of polished appearance that made Melissa instantly conscious of her own simple ponytail and minimal makeup. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Christine began, after they had exchanged stilted greetings. "I know this must seem strange." "It's fine," Ryan said, his tone carefully neutral. "What did you want to discuss?" Christine fidgeted with her coffee cup. "First, I want to congratulate you both. Lucas has told me how happy you are." "Thank you," Melissa replied, surprised by the sincerity in the other woman's voice. "And I want you to know," Christine continued, addressing Melissa directly, "that I'm glad he's found someone who makes him happy, who loves Lucas." "I do," Melissa confirmed. "Very much?" Christine nodded, then took a deep breath. "The thing is, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about the kind of mother I've been, the kind of mother I want to be." Ryan's posture stiffened beside Melissa. She reached for his hand under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "I'm moving back to the area," Christine announced. "I've accepted a job at the marketing firm in Springfield. I'll be living about 30 minutes from here." The implications hung in the air between them. Christine's move would mean more frequent visitation, a more consistent presence in Lucas's life. It was what the boy deserved, what Ryan had always hoped for despite the pain of his failed marriage. But the timing, just as they were forming their new family unit, seemed calculated to disrupt. "Why now?" Ryan asked, voicing the question in Melissa's mind. Christine looked down at her hands. "Because nearly losing him made me realize what I'd already lost by walking away." Confusion crossed Ryan's face. "What do you mean, nearly losing him?" "The fire," Christine clarified. "When Lucas called to tell me what happened, how close it had been, I realized I've been taking for granted that he'll always be there. waiting for me to get my act together. But he could have died that night, Ryan. My son could have died, and I was 3,000 miles away, too busy with my career to be a proper mother. Tears filled Christine's eyes, and despite herself, Melissa felt a flicker of sympathy for the woman. "I'm not here to cause problems," Christine continued. "I don't want to interfere with your wedding or your new family, but I need to be a real mother to Lucas, not just holiday visits and phone calls. He deserves better than that." Ryan was quiet for a long moment, processing. "I agree," he said finally. "Lucas does deserve better, but he also deserves consistency, Christine. I won't let him be hurt again by promises that aren't kept." "I understand," Christine nodded. "I know I have to earn your trust back. His trust. I'm prepared to do that, however long it takes." As they parted ways outside the cafe, Christine turned to Melissa with unexpected warmth. "Thank you for making them happy, both of them. I can see how good you are for them." Melissa watched Christine walk away, a complicated mix of emotions swirling within her. She had expected to dislike her fiancé's ex-wife on principle, to feel threatened by her reappearance in their lives. Instead, she found herself hoping that Christine's intentions were genuine, for Lucas's sake. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked as they drove home, concern evident in his voice. Melissa considered the question carefully. "I think so. It's not what I expected, but if she's serious about being more present for Lucas, that's a good thing, isn't it?" Ryan reached across the console to take her hand. "It is. And the fact that you can see that, even with everything else going on. It's one of the many reasons I love you." The day of the wedding dawned clear and mild, as if nature itself approved of their union. The backyard had been transformed with white folding chairs, twinkling lights strung between trees, and an arch of spring flowers at the end of a simple, grassy aisle. In the main bedroom, Amber helped Melissa with final preparations, while the twins twirled in their blue dresses, admiring their reflections in the full-length mirror Ryan had installed just for this occasion. "Nervous?" Amber asked, as she fastened the pearl necklace that had been their grandmother's around Melissa's neck. "Not even a little," Melissa replied truthfully. "It feels like everything in my life has been leading to this moment." A knock at the door revealed Lucas, looking handsome and grown up in his suit, a small box clutched in his hands. "Dad wanted me to give you this," he said, presenting the box to Melissa with ceremonial solemnity. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet and a note in Ryan's distinct handwriting. "For the woman who walked through fire and found me on the other side. All my love, today and always." Tears threatened to ruin Melissa's carefully applied makeup as she fastened the bracelet around her wrist. "Tell your dad it's perfect," she told Lucas, "and that I can't wait to marry him." Lucas nodded, then hesitated at the door. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, anything," Melissa assured him. "After today, after you and Dad are married, what should I call you?" The question caught Melissa by surprise. They had discussed so many aspects of blending their families, but this particular detail had never come up. "You can call me whatever you're comfortable with," she said gently. "Melissa is fine, or—" "Could I call you Mom?" Lucas asked, his voice small but determined. "Not to replace my real mom or anything, but kind of like, bonus mom?" Melissa's heart swelled with love for this thoughtful boy who had accepted her and her daughters so completely into his life. "I would be honored," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely honored." As Melissa walked down the aisle, a short time later, her father at her side and the twins preceding her with baskets of flower petals, her eyes locked with Ryan's. The man who had broken down a door and walked through fire to save her children stood waiting for her, his expression a mix of awe and absolute certainty. In that moment, Melissa knew that the flames that had destroyed their homes had forged something. infinitely more precious, a family built on courage, compassion, and a love that had emerged from the ashes stronger than either of them could have imagined. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Ryan pulled her into a kiss that promised a lifetime of tomorrows, the cheers of their friends and family were nearly drowned out by Emma's triumphant declaration to her sister, "See, just like in the movies, even better." The first year of marriage brought the Mitchell family both challenges and triumphs as they navigated their new reality. Together, the honeymoon, a weekend getaway to a lakeside cabin while the children stayed with grandparents, felt too brief, but they promised each other a proper vacation once they'd saved enough. Summer arrived with its own rhythm. The children were out of school, which meant finding activities to keep them occupied. Ryan enrolled Lucas in a baseball camp, while the twins joined a local art program 3 mornings a week. The afternoons were filled with backyard adventures, trips to the community pool, and work on the treehouse, which had expanded to include a zip line that Ryan carefully engineered between 2 sturdy oaks. Christine, true to her word, had taken an apartment in Springfield and established a regular visitation schedule with Lucas. Every other weekend, plus Wednesday dinners, the boy would spend time with his mother. At first, Ryan and Melissa held their breath, waiting for the pattern to break, for Lucas to return home disappointed by a cancelled plan or shortened visit. But as weeks became months, Christine remained consistent, and Lucas flourished under the attention of both his parents. She asked if the twins could come over sometime, Lucas announced one Sunday evening as Ryan drove him home from Christine's apartment. "For a movie night or something. She said it would be good for us all to get to know each other better." Ryan glanced at his son in the rearview mirror, trying to gauge his feelings about the suggestion. "What do you think about that?" Lucas shrugged, but there was a hint of enthusiasm beneath the casual gesture. "Might be cool. Emma and Olivia have never been to Mom's place, and she makes really good popcorn with extra butter and this special seasoning." Later that night, Ryan relayed the conversation to Melissa as they prepared for bed. "How do you feel about it?" he asked, watching her reaction carefully. Melissa considered the question as she applied moisturizer to her face, a nightly ritual that Ryan found endlessly fascinating. "Honestly, 6 months ago, I might have been threatened by the idea, but now I think it could be good for everyone, especially the kids." "Really?" Ryan seemed surprised. "You wouldn't mind the twins spending time with Christine? They're going to be in Lucas's life forever," Melissa pointed out pragmatically. "Which means Christine will be in their lives too, in some capacity. Better to establish a friendly relationship now than to have awkwardness later." Ryan crossed the room to wrap his arms around her from behind, meeting her eyes in the bathroom. Mirror. "Have I told you lately how amazing you are?" Melissa smiled, leaning back against his chest. "Not since this morning. I'm due for a reminder." He kissed her neck. "You are the most amazing, generous, intelligent woman I have ever known, and I still can't believe I got lucky enough to marry you." "Flattery will get you everywhere, Mr. Mitchell," Melissa teased, turning in his arms to face him. "Now, we have about 20 minutes before Lucas finishes his video game and the twins wrap up their bedtime story. What do you suggest we do with that time?" The movie night at Christine's turned out to be a success. The twins returned home, full of popcorn and enthusiasm about Christine's collection of Disney movies, and her promise to teach them how to make homemade ice cream on their next visit. "Mom's pretty cool," Lucas told Ryan the next day as they worked on rebuilding the back porch steps. "She didn't even get mad when Olivia spilled soda on her white rug." "That was nice of her," Ryan agreed, holding a board steady for Lucas to a hammer. "She asked me if I was happy," Lucas continued, his focus on the nail he was positioning. "About you and Melissa being married, about the twins." Ryan's hands stilled. "What did you tell her?" Lucas looked up, his expression serious beyond his years. I told her I was, that we're like a real family now. That I always wanted a brother or sister, and now I have two. And that Melissa makes really good pancakes, even better than yours. This last part was added with a mischievous grin. Traitor, Ryan laughed, ruffling his son's hair. But I'm glad. You're happy, buddy? That means everything to me. Mom seemed happy too, Lucas said thoughtfully. Not sad like I thought she might be. She said sometimes things work out exactly how they're supposed to, even when it doesn't seem like it at first. Ryan pondered those words long after the conversation ended, struck by their unexpected wisdom. As summer faded into fall, Melissa received news that would once again reshape their family dynamic. The hospital where she worked as a nurse was offering her a promotion to charge nurse with better pay and more regular hours. The catch was that it would require additional certification, meaning night classes twice a week for the next 6 months. I don't know if I should take it, she admitted to Ryan as they discussed the opportunity on their front porch, a sanctuary they'd claimed for adult conversations after the children were in bed. The timing isn't great with the twins just starting, first grade, and us still settling into married life. I think you should, Ryan said without hesitation. This is exactly what you've been working toward. We can make the schedule work. But who will help with homework? And what about dinner those nights and bedtime routines? Ryan gave her a pointed look. You think I can't handle all that? Of course you can, Melissa backtracked. That's not what I meant. It's just that we've fallen into a rhythm where we share those responsibilities. It's a lot to put on you alone. First of all, it's only 2 nights a week, Ryan reasoned. And second, we're not alone. Christine has already offered to take Lucas on Wednesday nights, and your sister is always happy to help with the twins, not to mention our parents. That's true, Melissa acknowledged, warming to the idea. And the pay increase would mean we could start saving for a bigger house, maybe even look at that neighborhood near the good middle school. Exactly, Ryan nodded. Besides, I seem to recall something in our wedding vows about supporting each other's dreams. This is your dream. Mel, let me support you in it. And so Melissa enrolled in the certification program, beginning classes that September. The adjustment required coordination and occasional creative solutions, but as Ryan had predicted, they made it work. Christine extended her Wednesday visitation with Lucas to include dinner, freeing Ryan to focus on the twins those evenings. Amber stepped in when necessary, sometimes taking the girls for a cousin's sleepover with her own daughter on nights when both Ryan and Melissa had commitments. The most surprising development, however, was the gradual friendship that formed between Melissa and Christine. What began as polite co-parenting conversations slowly evolved into genuine connection, built on their shared affection for Lucas and mutual respect. She's nothing like I imagined, Melissa confessed to Ryan after Christine had invited her for coffee one afternoon. From the way you described your marriage, I expected someone cold and career-obsessed, but she's actually quite warm, funny even. People change, Ryan said thoughtfully. The Christine I was married to isn't the same person she is now. Just like I'm not the same person I was then. Do you ever regret it? Melissa asked quietly. The divorce? Ryan considered the question carefully. I regret the pain it caused, Lucas. I regret that we couldn't find a way to make it work. He reached for her hand. But I don't regret where I ended up. If Christine and I had stayed together, I never would have moved to Pinewood Heights. I never would have heard those screams that night. I never would have found you and the girls. Their first Thanksgiving as a married couple brought another surprise when Christine hesitantly asked if she could join them for the holiday meal. Lucas mentioned you're hosting both your families, she explained over the phone to Melissa, and I don't want to intrude, but my parents are cruising in the Caribbean, and the thought of eating turkey alone in my apartment is pretty depressing. I thought maybe, if it's not too awkward. Of course you can come, Melissa said without hesitation. You're Lucas's mother. you'll always have a place at our table." And so Thanksgiving featured an unlikely gathering. Ryan's parents and brother, Melissa's parents and sister and niece, and Christine all squeezed around a table expanded with borrowed card tables and mismatched chairs. The children sat at their own kids' table in the living room, giggling over inside jokes and stealing extra slices of pie when they thought no one was looking. "Well, this is," David began as he surveyed the eclectic group. "Glass of wine in." "And family," Ryan finished for him, "in all its complicated, beautiful glory." As winter settled over Castlewood, bringing with it the first snowfall and preparations for Christmas, Melissa completed her certification with honors. The promotion came through as promised, along with a substantial increase in salary that allowed them to begin house hunting in earnest. "I still can't believe we're actually doing this," Melissa marveled as they toured a 4-bedroom colonial in the prestigious Oak Hill neighborhood. "A year and a half ago, I was living paycheck to paycheck in that tiny apartment with the twins." "A lot can change in a year and a half," Ryan agreed, watching the children race up and down the staircase of what might become their new home. "Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one decision, to change everything." They both knew which moment. He meant that terrifying, miraculous night when flames had destroyed their homes but forged an unbreakable connection between them. By February, they had closed on the Oak Hill house and begun the process of moving. The cottage that had been Ryan's refuge after his divorce, and then the first home of their blended family, would be sold to a young couple expecting their first child. "It feels right," Ryan said as they packed up the living room. "This house gave us shelter when we needed it. Now it can do the same for someone else." The twins were excited about having their own separate rooms for the first time in their lives, though Melissa suspected they would still end up sleeping together more. Often than not, their twin bond an unbreakable force. Lucas was thrilled about the finished basement that would become a rec room, complete with space for his growing collection of video games and sports equipment. As they settled into their new home, preparations began for another milestone, the formal adoption of the twins by Ryan. The legal process had taken longer than expected, requiring consent from their biological father, who had eventually been located in California. To everyone's relief, he had signed the necessary paperwork without protest, acknowledging that he had never been part of the girls' lives and had no intention of changing that. On a bright April morning, almost exactly 2 years after the fire that had brought them together, the Mitchell family gathered at the county courthouse. Emma and Olivia wore matching blue dresses, their favorite color, with their blonde hair braided identically by Melissa that morning. Lucas stood beside them in a suit he had outgrown slightly since the wedding, his shoulders beginning to broaden. As he approached his 12th birthday, the proceedings were brief but emotional. The judge, a kindly woman with silver hair and reading glasses perched on the end of her nose, asked the twins if they understood what was happening today. "Our dad is going to be our real dad," Emma explained solemnly. "On paper, not just in our hearts. He already saved us from the fire," Olivia added. "But now nobody can ever take us away from him." "Indeed," the judge smiled, visibly touched. "And Mr. Mitchell, do you understand the responsibilities you are undertaking today? To love, protect, and provide for these children as your own, with all the legal and moral obligations that entails?" Ryan's voice was steady, though his eyes shone with unshed tears. "I do, Your Honor. From the moment I carried them out of that building, they became mine to protect. This just makes official what we've known in our hearts for a long time." With a final stroke of her pen and the bang of her gavel, the judge made it official. "By the power vested in me by the state, I hereby declare Emma and Olivia Mitchell legally adopted, with all the rights and privileges as if they were born to their adoptive father." Cheers erupted from the small crowd of family and friends who had gathered to witness the occasion. Christine, who had become a fixture in their extended family circle, was among the first to congratulate them, presenting the twins with matching silver lockets containing family photos, Lucas on one side, Ryan and Melissa on the other. "Now we're really all Mitchells," Emma exclaimed as they exited the courthouse into the spring sunshine. "We've been Mitchells since the day Dad carried us out of the fire," Olivia corrected her sister with the wisdom that sometimes emerged unexpectedly from the more reserved twin. "Today just makes it so everyone else knows it too." That evening, after a celebration dinner at their favorite restaurant and with the children finally asleep in their beds, Ryan and Melissa sat on the back deck of their new home, stargazing in comfortable silence. "I've been thinking," Ryan said finally, his fingers intertwined with hers, "about how different our lives would be if I hadn't woken up when I did that night, if I hadn't heard those screams." "Don't," Melissa shuddered. "I can't bear to think about it." "No, it's not about the what-ifs," Ryan clarified. "It's about the why. Why did I wake up before the alarms in my apartment even went off? Why did I send Lucas ahead instead of just getting him out of the building? Why did I run toward the screams instead of away from the fire?" Melissa turned to face him, her expression questioning. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe some things are meant to be," Ryan said softly. "Maybe we were always supposed to find each other, and the universe just needed to create the right circumstances." "You think the universe set a building on fire to play matchmaker?" Melissa teased gently. Ryan laughed, pulling her closer. "When you put it that way, it does sound ridiculous, but still. Sometimes I look at our life, at you, at the kids, at everything we've built together, and I can't help but feel that this was always the plan, that all the pain and loss we both endured was leading us here, to each other, to family." Melissa agreed, resting her head on his shoulder as they gazed up at the stars. "Our perfectly imperfect, beautifully blended family." From inside the house came the soft sound of Lucas's voice, then one of the twins, likely Emma, the lighter sleeper, responding. Footsteps padded across the hallway, a door opened and closed, and silence returned. "Should we check on them?" Ryan wondered. Melissa shook her head, smiling. "They're fine. Probably just Lucas checking on the girls after their big day. He takes his big brother duties very seriously." "Like father, like son," Ryan murmured, echoing words Melissa had spoken early in their relationship. As they sat together under the vast canopy of stars, Melissa reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. A journey that began in flames and fear, but had led to a love deeper and more profound than anything she could have imagined. A love forged in fire, tested by challenges, and strengthened by the family they had built together. The universe, it seemed, sometimes had strange methods, but she couldn't argue with the results. In the distance, a siren wailed, probably an ambulance heading to the hospital where she worked. Once, that sound would have triggered memories of terror, of smoke and flames, and desperate fear for her children. Now, it was simply a reminder of the fragility of life and the preciousness of each moment with those you love. Ryan seemed to read her thoughts, pulling her closer as the sound faded away. "We're safe," he whispered, a reassurance he had offered countless times in the early days after the fire, when nightmares had plagued them all. "I know," Melissa replied, turning in his arms to meet his gaze in the soft glow of the porch lights. "Because of you, we'll always be safe." And as his lips met hers in a kiss that still held the same magic as their first, Melissa knew with absolute certainty that the fire that had taken her home had ultimately given her something infinitely more valuable, a hero who had become a husband, a rescuer who had become a father to her children, and a love story that had risen, phoenix-like, from the ashes of tragedy to become something beautiful and enduring. Some people spent their whole lives searching for their happy ending. Melissa had found hers in the most unlikely of circumstances, through smoke and flame, guided by the terrified screams of her children and the courage of a man who could have walked away but chose instead to walk through fire. Now, as they sat, beneath the stars, surrounded by the home and family they had built together, she silently thanked whatever twist of fate or cosmic plan had led them to each other. From the darkest night of her life had come the brightest dawn, and a love that burned steadier and warmer than any flame could ever hope to match. 5 years after the fire that had forever altered their lives, the Mitchell family gathered in their backyard to celebrate an important milestone, the twins' 11th birthday. The property buzzed with the energy of excited children, the aroma of grilling hamburgers, and the cheerful melody of Happy Birthday sung slightly out of tune by friends and family. Emma and Olivia, no longer the frightened 6-year-olds Ryan, had carried through flames, had blossomed into confident young girls with distinct personalities despite their identical appearance. Emma, always the more outgoing of the pair, had developed a passion for soccer and theatre, while Olivia found her calling in science and art. Yet the bond between them remained unbreakable, a silent language of glances and gestures that even their parents couldn't always decipher. Lucas, now 16 and towering over his adoptive sisters, had grown into a thoughtful young man with his father's quiet strength and a gentle patience that made him adored by the twins. He stood at the grill beside Ryan, learning the art of perfect burger flipping with the serious concentration he applied to everything new. "Remember to press the center down a little," Ryan instructed, demonstrating with the spatula. "Otherwise, they puff up and cook unevenly." Lucas nodded, absorbing the lesson as he had countless others from the man who had shown him what it meant to be not just a father, but a hero in everyday life. Across the yard, Melissa chatted with Christine, who had become an unexpected but valued friend over the years. Their relationship had evolved from cautious co-parents to genuine companions who occasionally met for lunch or yoga classes, independent of family gatherings. "The girls look so grown up," Christine observed, watching as Emma and Olivia unwrapped presents with their friends. "It's hard to believe they were barely in kindergarten when all this started." "Don't remind me," Melissa groaned good-naturedly. "Next thing you know, they'll be teenagers, and we'll have 3 of them in the house." Christine laughed. "Lucas is already giving you a preview. How's that going?" "Better than expected, actually," Melissa admitted. "He's a good kid, responsible, gets his homework done without being nagged, helps with the girls. We're lucky." "That's not luck," Christine said, her tone suddenly serious. "That's you and Ryan. The stability you've given him, the example you've set. I'm grateful for that, you know, for all you've done for my son." Melissa squeezed Christine's hand, touched by the sincerity in her voice. "He's as much mine as yours now. That's how family works." As the party wound down and guests departed with goodie bags and leftover cake, the Mitchell family began the cleanup process with the well-coordinated efficiency of people accustomed to working together. "Dad, can Jackson spend the night on Friday?" Lucas asked as he collected discarded paper plates. "His parents are going to some charity thing, and he doesn't want to be stuck with his little sister and the babysitter." "Fine by me if it's okay with your mom," Ryan replied automatically, referencing their long-standing agreement to consult Christine on social plans during her visitation weekends. Lucas shook his head. "It's your weekend. Mom's going to that conference. In Chicago, remember?" Ryan looked surprised. "That's this weekend? I thought it was next weekend." "Nope, this one," Lucas confirmed. "She already told me I'd be here. Said she talked to you about it last month." Ryan's brow furrowed briefly, then cleared as recognition dawned. "Right, the marketing summit. I remember now. Sorry, buddy. Yes, Jackson can stay over. But homework? First, then video games." Later that evening, After the twins had finally drifted off to sleep, exhausted from birthday excitement, and Lucas had retreated to his room for his nightly ritual of video chats with friends, Ryan and Melissa relaxed on their bedroom balcony, a favorite addition to their Oak Hill home. "I can't believe I forgot about Christine's conference," Ryan said, shaking his head. "It's been crazy at work with the new development breaking ground." "You've had a lot on your mind," Melissa soothed, curling her legs beneath her on the comfortable outdoor love seat they'd splurged on last summer. "Between the promotion and the city contract, you've been running on fumes." Ryan's construction company had grown significantly over the past 5 years, expanding from residential renovations to commercial projects. His recent contract with the city to rebuild the community center was his largest project to date, a source of both pride and stress as he navigated the complexities of public works funding and municipal regulations. "Speaking of things on our minds," Melissa continued, her tone shifting subtly, "I've been thinking about something big." Ryan turned to face her, instantly alert to the significance in her voice. "What is it?" Melissa took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "What would you think about us having another baby?" The question hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Ryan's expression cycled through surprise, confusion, and thoughtful consideration. "Where is this coming from?" he asked finally. "I thought we agreed our family was complete." "We did," Melissa acknowledged. "And it is, the 5 of us. It's perfect. But lately, I've been feeling like maybe there's room for one more. Someone who would be ours together from the beginning." Ryan was quiet for a long moment, processing. "You don't feel like the twins are mine, or that Lucas is yours?" "Of course they are," Melissa hastened to reassure him. "That's not what I meant at all. The adoption was one of the happiest days of my life. And Lucas, he calls me Mom now, Ryan. He's my son in every way that matters." "Then why?" Melissa struggled to articulate the longing that had been growing within her. "Maybe because we missed those early years together, the pregnancy, the midnight feedings, the first steps. Or maybe because I'm 37 and I realize the window is closing. I just keep thinking about how amazing you are as a father, how wonderful our life is together, and how incredible it would be to share that journey from the very beginning." Ryan reached for her hand, his expression softening. "I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about it too, especially when Morgan was born." Morgan was David's daughter, now 18 months old, and the apple of her uncle Ryan's eye. He had taken to fatherhood with a joy and enthusiasm that sometimes made Ryan wonder what it would be like to experience those early years with Melissa. At his side, "Really?" Melissa's face lit up with hope. "You've thought about it?" "Of course I have," Ryan admitted, "but I wasn't sure if you'd want to start over with diapers and sleepless nights when we're just getting to the point where everyone can buckle their own seatbelts and make their own breakfast." Melissa laughed. "I've thought about that too, and maybe it's crazy. Our lives are already so full, so complete, but whenever I see you with Morgan, or watch how gentle Lucas is with her, or see how the twins fuss over her like little mother hens, I can't help but imagine what it would be like to add to our family." Ryan pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Let's not decide tonight. It's a big decision, one we should both sit with for a while. And we should probably talk to the kids about it too, get their thoughts." "Agreed," Melissa nodded, relieved that the conversation had been opened, even if no decision had been reached. No rush. But life, as they had learned in the most dramatic way possible, had its own timeline and rarely consulted with those involved before setting events in motion. 2 weeks later, as Melissa prepared for her annual physical, a suspicion that had been growing in the back of her mind became impossible to ignore. Her cycle, typically as reliable as the calendar itself, was late, very late. She purchased a test on the way home from work, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and excitement. In the privacy of their master bathroom, with Ryan still at the construction site and the children occupied with homework and after-school activities, she followed the simple instructions and waited the requisite 3 minutes, watching the second hand on her watch tick by with excruciating slowness. When the result appeared, 2 distinct pink lines where one would indicate a negative, Melissa sank onto the edge of the bathtub, a hand pressed to her mouth in shock. At 37, after a casual conversation about the possibility of expanding their family just 2 weeks earlier, she was pregnant. She hadn't planned to tell Ryan immediately. The surprise was too significant, the implications too far-reaching. She wanted to process her own feelings first, to visit her doctor for confirmation, to formulate a plan for sharing the news with not just her husband, but their 3 children, whose lives would be fundamentally altered by this development. But when Ryan arrived home that evening, taking one look at her face as she stood in the kitchen, absently stirring a pot of pasta that had long since passed al dente, all her careful, her plans evaporated. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately crossing to her side, his face etched with concern. "Did something happen?" And just like that, the secret tumbled out. "I'm pregnant." Ryan froze, his hand halfway to her shoulder. "You're... what?" "Pregnant," Melissa repeated, finding her voice stronger the second time. "I took a test this afternoon. It's positive." A moment of stunned silence stretched between them, and then Ryan's face broke into a smile of such pure joy that it banished any lingering doubts Melissa might have harbored. "Really?" he whispered, reaching for her with trembling hands. "We're having a baby." Melissa nodded, tears spilling onto her cheeks as relief and happiness overwhelmed her. "We're having a baby." Ryan gathered her into his arms, holding her as if she were made of the most precious material on earth. "I love you," he said fiercely. "I love you, and I love this baby, and I love our family. All of it. Every complicated, beautiful piece of it." Telling the children was the next challenge. They decided to share the news that weekend, after consulting with Christine to ensure she was comfortable with Lucas learning such significant family news during his time with them. "Of course," Christine had said immediately when Melissa called. "This is wonderful news, Melissa. Lucas should absolutely be there with his sisters when you tell them. And congratulations, truly. You and Ryan are going to be amazing parents." Again, the conversation with the children was approached with careful planning. Ryan grilled their favorite dinner: steak for him and Lucas, portobello mushrooms for Melissa and the twins, who had recently declared themselves vegetarians after a school project on factory farming. After the meal, as they gathered in the living room for their traditional Sunday night board game, Ryan and Melissa exchanged a nervous glance. "Before we start the game," Ryan began, "Mum and I have something we want to talk to you about." 3 pairs of eyes fixed on them with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. "Is this about summer camp?" Emma asked immediately. "Because Olivia and I have been talking, and we decided we actually do want to go to the same one this year." "It's not about summer camp," Melissa assured her. "It's about our family, about how much we love being a family together, the 5 of us." "Are you getting divorced?" Lucas blurted, his adolescent mind immediately jumping to worst-case scenarios. "What?" "No!" Ryan exclaimed, shocked by the question. "Absolutely not. Why would you think that?" Lucas shrugged, suddenly fascinated by a loose thread on his jeans. "That's how my mum started the conversation when you guys split up. We love you very much, but..." Melissa moved to sit beside Lucas on the couch, taking his hand. "No buts. Lucas, we love our family exactly as it is. In fact, we love it so much that we've decided to make it a little bigger." Confusion crossed all 3 young faces, followed by a dawn of understanding on Lucas's. "You're pregnant," he said. Not a question, but a statement. Melissa nodded, watching his expression carefully for signs of distress or displeasure. "About 8 weeks along. The baby will be born in early November." A moment of stunned silence, Then a cacophony of reactions. The twins leapt up with squeals of excitement, peppering their parents with questions about names and nursery colors, and whether the baby would be a boy or a girl. Lucas remained on the couch, his expression thoughtful. You okay with this, Lucas?" Ryan asked quietly, moving to sit on his son's other side, while the twins continued their excited chatter. Lucas considered the question seriously, as was his way. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think I am. It's just different. I've been the only boy, the oldest. Now there might be another boy, and I'll still be the oldest, but not by as much as with the twins. You'll always be our firstborn," Melissa assured him, squeezing his hand. "Nothing changes that, but I hope you know how much the new baby will look up to you, how lucky they'll be to have you as their big brother." A small smile tugged at Lucas's lips. "I did pretty well with the twins, I guess." "You did amazing," Ryan confirmed. "They adore you. This baby will too." Lucas nodded, his decision made. "Then I'm good with it, but I get to help pick the name." The pregnancy progressed with relatively few complications. Melissa experienced more fatigue than she had with the twins, a factor of age, her doctor assured her, but otherwise remained healthy and active. She continued working at the hospital on a modified schedule, planning to take 6 months of maternity leave after the birth. The entire family became invested in preparations for the new arrival. The twins transformed their playroom into a nursery, carefully selecting a gender-neutral color scheme of soft greens and yellows. Lucas researched the safest car seats and strollers, presenting his findings in a detailed spreadsheet that made Ryan beam with pride at his methodical approach. Even Christine contributed, gifting them a beautiful handmade quilt she had commissioned from an artist friend. As Melissa's due date approached, a sense of peaceful anticipation settled over the Mitchell household. This baby, conceived in love and welcomed with joy by their entire blended family, represented not just the union of Ryan and Melissa, but the culmination of a journey that had begun in fire and fear and transformed into something beautiful beyond imagining. "Do you ever think about how differently things could have turned out?" Melissa asked one evening as Ryan helped her settle into bed, her heavily pregnant form requiring an increasingly elaborate arrangement of pillows for comfort. "What do you mean?" Ryan asked, gently lifting her swollen feet onto a cushion. "If you hadn't heard the twins that night, if you had taken Lucas and left, if the firefighters hadn't found me in time." Melissa's hand rested on her rounded belly where their child kicked energetically. "None of this would exist." Ryan sat beside her, his hand joining hers to feel the movements of their unborn child. "I used to think about that all the time, in the early days. The what-ifs haunted me. But now I just feel grateful. For whatever force in the universe nudged me awake that night, for whatever courage made me run toward the fire instead of away from it." "Our own personal miracle," Melissa murmured, leaning into his solid warmth. "One of many," Ryan corrected, kissing her gently. "The fire was just the beginning. Every day since has been a miracle of its own kind." On a crisp November morning, 2 weeks before her due date, Melissa woke Ryan with a gentle shake. "It's time," she said simply, her eyes bright with anticipation despite the discomfort evident in her expression. The carefully rehearsed plan sprang into action. Christine arrived within 30 minutes to stay with the children who were still asleep. Ryan helped Melissa to the car, her hospital bag, packed for weeks, secure in the trunk. As he backed out of the driveway, Melissa placed a hand on his arm. "Whatever happens today," she said softly, "know that you've already given me more than I ever dreamed possible. A family, a home, a love story that began in the most unlikely way imaginable." Ryan smiled, covering her hand with his own. "The best stories always do." 7 hours later, Melissa cradled their newborn son in her arms, his tiny features a perfect blend of both parents. Ryan sat on the edge of the hospital bed, one arm around his wife, the other hand gently stroking his son's dark hair. "He's perfect," Ryan whispered, awe evident in his voice. "Absolutely perfect." "He needs a name," Melissa reminded him, though they had been discussing possibilities for months without reaching a final decision. Ryan studied the infant's face thoughtfully. "What about Phoenix?" Melissa raised an eyebrow. "Phoenix? It means rebirth from the ashes," Ryan explained. "It seems fitting given how our family began." Melissa tested the name, whispering it to the sleeping infant. "Phoenix Mitchell, Phoenix Ryan Mitchell. You want to use my name as his middle name?" Ryan asked, touched by the suggestion. "Of course," Melissa smiled up at him. "Named for the bravest man I know." When the children arrived to meet their new brother, their reactions were everything their parents had hoped for. The twins approached the baby with exaggerated caution, their whispers comically loud as they exclaimed over his tiny fingers and button nose. Lucas hung back initially, but when Ryan placed Phoenix in his arms, the teenager's expression transformed. With wonder and protectiveness. "Hi, Phoenix," he said softly. "I'm your big brother. I've got a lot to teach you." As Melissa watched her family gathered around the newest Mitchell, she reflected on the extraordinary path that had led them here. From the terror of a night engulfed in flames to the joy of this moment, cradling new life surrounded by love. It was a journey she could never have imagined, but would never trade for any other. The fire had taken her home, but in its place, she had found something infinitely more precious, a hero who became a husband, a rescuer who became a father to her children, and a love story that had indeed risen, phoenix-like, from the ashes to become something beautiful, enduring, and complete. Phoenix Ryan Mitchell, born of that love, would grow up hearing the story of how his family came to be, not as a tale of tragedy, but as an epic of courage, second chances, and the remarkable ways that life sometimes leads us through fire to find our greatest happiness on the other side. 10 years after the fire that had forever changed their lives, the Mitchell family gathered on the back deck of their lakeside vacation home to celebrate Phoenix's 5th birthday. The property buzzed with laughter and conversation as extended family and close friends joined in the celebration. Phoenix Ryan Mitchell, with his father's hazel eyes and his mother's dimpled smile, raced around the yard with his cousins, his dark hair catching the late summer sunlight. He was the perfect blend of his parents, Ryan's quiet thoughtfulness tempered by Melissa's warm expressiveness, a child who had been born into love and had known nothing else. "Hard to believe it's been 10 years, Amber said, joining Melissa at the refreshment table. "Remember when you were staying in my guest room with the twins, convinced you'd never find an apartment you could afford?" Melissa laughed, watching as Ryan helped Phoenix position himself for a swing at the piñata. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Other times it seems like another lifetime entirely." In many ways it was. The frightened single mother who had lost everything in that fire barely resembled the confident woman Melissa had become. Charge nurse at the hospital, mother of 4, wife to a man whose love had never wavered through a decade of life's inevitable challenges and triumphs. The twins, now 16, were typical teenagers, alternately sullen and exuberant, fiercely independent yet still seeking guidance. Emma had developed into a talented athlete with scholarship offers already coming in for soccer, while Olivia excelled academically, her sights set on medical school. Though physically identical, their distinct personalities had only grown more pronounced with age. Lucas, at 21, had just started his senior year of college, majoring in architecture with a minor in fire safety engineering, a career choice directly influenced by the event that had shaped their family. He'd driven in from State University for the weekend celebration, bringing his girlfriend Mia, whom he'd been dating for nearly a year. Christine arrived as Phoenix finally made contact with the piñata, sending candy scattering across the lawn to the delight of the younger children. She carried a wrapped gift and a homemade cake, her famous triple chocolate that had become a birthday tradition in their blended family. "Sorry I'm late," she apologized, kissing Melissa's cheek in greeting. "Client meeting ran long." "You're just in time," Melissa assured her, taking the cake. "We haven't done presents yet, and Phoenix has been asking when you'd get here." Their friendship, unlikely as it once seemed, had deepened over the years into something neither woman had expected, but both cherished. Christine had remarried 3 years earlier to Brian, a kind-hearted accountant who had embraced the complexity of their extended family with good humor and genuine affection. "Lucas looks happy," Christine observed, watching their son with his arm around Mia as they helped the younger children gather candy. "Mia's good for him." "She is," Melissa agreed. "I wouldn't be surprised if there's an announcement soon. He asked Ryan about his grandmother's ring last month." The celebration continued. As the afternoon mellowed into evening, Phoenix opened presents with the exuberant joy of a 5-year-old, exclaiming over each gift as if it were the most wonderful thing he'd ever seen. The cake was cut, candles blown out with a wish kept secret, despite his siblings' teasing attempts to make him reveal it. As twilight descended, Ryan built a fire in the stone pit near the lake's edge. The adults gathered around it with glasses of wine or beer, while the children roasted marshmallows for s'mores under Lucas's watchful eye. "I'd like to propose a toast," David said, raising his glass as the conversation lulled. "To my brother and his remarkable wife, who showed us all what it means to find light in darkness, who built something beautiful from tragedy, and who gave us this wild, wonderful, expanded family that none of us could have imagined 10 years ago." Glasses clinked in agreement as Ryan pulled Melissa closer to his side, pressing a kiss to her temple. Later, after guests had departed and the children were finally asleep, Phoenix in his room filled with firefighter paraphernalia, the twins sharing the loft space despite having separate rooms at home, and Lucas and Mia in the guest suite by the lake. Ryan and Melissa sat alone, by the dying embers of the fire. "Happy?" Ryan asked, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting in the familiar hollow of his neck. "Completely," Melissa replied, without hesitation. "You?" Ryan nodded, his gaze on the glowing coals. "I was thinking about something Phoenix asked me today, while we were setting up the piñata." "What's that?" "He wanted to know if I was scared. When I ran into the fire to save the twins, if I knew I might get hurt." Melissa lifted her head to look at him. "What did you tell him?" "The truth," Ryan said simply, "that I was terrified, that I knew exactly how dangerous it was, but sometimes the things most worth doing in life are the things that scare us the most." "Wise words," Melissa murmured, settling back against him. "I also told him that being scared doesn't mean you're not brave, that real courage is feeling the fear and doing the right thing anyway." Melissa smiled, remembering the frightened yet determined man who had appeared in her daughter's bedroom that night, promising to carry them to safety. "You would know." "We both would," Ryan corrected gently. "You've shown just as much courage, Mel. Taking a chance on us, blending our families, starting over after losing everything." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the soft lapping of lake water against the shore and the distant hooting of an owl. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," Melissa said finally. "Something I've wondered about for years, but never quite found the right moment to bring up." Ryan turned to face her, curious. "What is it?" "That night, when you heard the twins screaming, you could have called for help and waited. Most people would have. What made you run toward the danger instead of away from it?" Ryan considered the question thoughtfully, as was his way. "I've asked myself that same thing many times over the years," he admitted, "and I don't have a perfect answer. Maybe it was because their screams reminded me of Lucas. Maybe it was because, after the divorce, I needed to feel like I could still make a difference, still be someone's hero. He paused, his gaze moving to the star-filled sky above them. Or maybe it was something simpler. Maybe some part of me already knew that on the other side of that fire, I would find everything I didn't even know I was looking for. Melissa's eyes filled with tears at the simple beauty of his answer. "I'm glad you ran toward the fire," she whispered, "and I'm even more grateful that you stayed afterward when the flames were out, but we were still finding our way through." "The ashes." Ryan tightened his arm around her, pulling her closer. "Best decision I ever made." As the final embers of their campfire faded to ash, Melissa reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From a night of terror to a decade of love. From strangers connected by tragedy to partners bound by choice and commitment. The fire that had taken her home had ultimately led her to a deeper understanding of what home truly meant. Not walls and a roof, but the people who fill your heart and make each day worth living. "We should head inside," Ryan suggested eventually, noticing Melissa's slight shiver as the night air cooled. "Big day tomorrow with everyone heading back." "In a minute," Melissa said, reluctant to break the spell of the moment. "I just want to sit here a little longer and be grateful." Ryan nodded in understanding, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. No further words were needed between them. Their story had been written in actions rather than declarations, in choices made and challenges faced together. In a family forged by fire, but sustained by love. And as they finally rose to walk hand in hand back to the house where their children slept safely, Melissa knew with absolute certainty that some flames, like the one that burned between her and the man who had once been a stranger and was now the center of her world, were never meant to be extinguished, but to burn brighter with each passing year. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.